Why does modern life so often feel as though it is never quite enough? We have more ways to communicate, yet many people feel alone. We have more entertainment than any generation before us, yet boredom quickly returns. We can buy something in seconds, watch almost anything instantly, and measure our progress through numbers, followers, income, and achievements. Still, beneath all this activity, a quiet dissatisfaction often remains. There is always another goal, another purchase, another improvement, another version of ourselves that we believe will finally feel complete. Swami Vivekananda addressed this problem long before smartphones, social media, and online shopping. In his teachings on Jnana yoga, the path of spiritual knowledge, he asked a question that reaches directly into modern life. What if we are trying to satisfy an infinite longing with finite things? This does not mean that ordinary life is wrong. It does not mean that comfort, relationships, work, or success should be rejected. It means that we may be asking these things to give us something they cannot permanently provide. We ask changing circumstances to give us an unchanging sense of peace. We ask other people to confirm our worth. We ask possessions to strengthen an identity that never feels secure for very long. Vivekananda's answer is challenging but also deeply hopeful. The feeling that something is missing does not necessarily mean that we need to acquire more. It may mean that we have forgotten what we are. Consider how the mind usually imagines fulfillment. It says, "When I reach that position, then I will be satisfied. When I earn that amount, then I can relax. When this person loves me, then I will feel valuable. When my body looks different, when my home is complete, when my problems are resolved, then life will finally begin." Sometimes we reach the thing we wanted. For a moment there is pleasure and relief. But soon the mind adjusts. The extraordinary becomes ordinary. A new desire appears, and the promise of completion moves a little further into the future. This is not a personal defect. It is the natural result of seeking permanent fulfillment in experiences that are temporary. Every object changes. Every achievement becomes part of the past. Every emotion rises and falls. Even our ideas about who we are continue to develop. Jnana yoga asks us to investigate the one who is having all these experiences. Your body has changed since childhood. Your opinions have changed. Your ambitions, fears, relationships, and memories have changed. Some roles have disappeared, while new roles have taken their place. Yet through all these changes, you continue to say, "I." There is a sense of being present that seems to accompany every chapter of your life. Vivekananda directs our attention toward this presence. He distinguishes between what is observed and the awareness that observes it. A thought can be noticed, so you cannot be limited to that thought. An emotion can be noticed, so your entire being cannot be reduced to that emotion. Even the body can be experienced as an object of awareness. This does not mean that thoughts, emotions, or the body are unimportant. It means that they may not be the whole truth of who you are. Imagine watching clouds move across the sky. One cloud is dark, another is bright, and another almost disappears. The sky does not need to hold on to the pleasant cloud or fight the storm cloud. It gives space to them all without becoming any one of them. Our ordinary identity is often like a person who has forgotten the sky and believes they are each passing cloud. When anxiety appears, we say, "I am anxious," as if anxiety describes our deepest nature. When failure comes, we say, "I am a failure." When praise comes, we feel enlarged. When criticism comes, we feel diminished. But awareness itself is present before the thought, during the thought, and after the thought has passed. Vivekananda calls us toward the freedom of discovering this deeper self. In Advaita Vedanta, this self is not merely a more confident personality. It is not an improved story about ourselves. It is the consciousness in which every personality, sensation, and experience appears. This is why modern life can feel so exhausting. We spend enormous energy protecting a constructed identity. We manage how others see us. We compare our private uncertainty with other people's public appearance. We collect evidence that we are successful, attractive, intelligent, spiritual, or worthy. Yet every identity built from comparison remains vulnerable because comparison never ends. There will always be someone with more money, more recognition, greater beauty, better health, or an apparently happier life. If our peace depends upon winning the comparison, peace will always be temporary. Vedanta uses the word Maya to describe the confusion through which the changing world appears to be the whole of reality. Maya does not simply mean that nothing exists or that life should be ignored. It points to the way we misread experience. We treat the temporary as permanent. We treat the limited as if it could satisfy the limitless. We mistake the image for the person and the role for the self. Social media offers a vivid modern example. A photograph captures one moment, carefully chosen from thousands of unrecorded moments. A profile becomes a simplified version of a complicated human being. The mind knows this, but still reacts as if the image were the complete truth. We compare our ordinary Tuesday with another person's most beautiful 10 seconds. Maya is not only on a screen, it operates whenever appearance is mistaken for essence. A prestigious job may conceal despair, a modest life may contain great peace, a confident voice may hide fear, a difficult period may become the beginning of wisdom. We suffer when we insist that the surface must tell us the whole story. The solution is not to abandon the world, it is to see it more clearly. Vivekananda repeatedly points toward freedom rather than escape. Freedom begins when we stop asking every experience to define us. Pleasure can be enjoyed without demanding that it last forever. Pain can be faced without turning it into a permanent identity. Success can be welcomed without believing it makes us superior. Failure can teach us without becoming a verdict on our worth. This changes the meaning of enough. Normally, enough means reaching a particular quantity. Enough money, enough admiration, enough certainty. But the mind can always imagine more. From the viewpoint of Jnana Yoga, genuine enoughness is not a quantity we finally accumulate. It is the recognition that our essential being was never incomplete. Vivekananda expresses this with extraordinary boldness. The spiritual journey is not the manufacture of a perfect self. It is the removal of mistaken identification. We do not create the sun by opening the curtains. We only remove what prevented us from seeing the light. This teaching can easily be misunderstood. It does not mean that practical problems are imaginary, or that people should tolerate injustice, illness, poverty, or abuse without taking action. Spiritual insight should not become an excuse for indifference. At the level of daily life, needs are real and wise action matters. The point is subtler. Even while improving our circumstances, we can investigate whether our deepest worth depends on the result. We can work wholeheartedly without placing our entire identity inside the outcome. Suppose you are building a career. You can learn, improve, take risks, and create something valuable. But if your career becomes the sole answer to the question, "Who am I?" then every setback threatens your existence. Work is transformed from a meaningful activity into a constant defense of the self. The same is true in relationships. Love becomes painful when another person is made responsible for completing our identity. We may call it love, but beneath it there can be fear. Do not change. Do not leave. Do not stop confirming that I matter. Jnana Yoga does not ask us to love less. It invites us to love from greater freedom. Vivekananda's teaching of one existence appearing as many suggests that the deepest self in us is not separate from the deepest self in others. Love then becomes more than possession. It becomes recognition. This is one of the most radical parts of Advaita. Beneath the countless differences of personality, culture, belief, and history, there is one consciousness appearing through many forms. Vivekananda compares this to one sun reflected in many pools of water. The reflections appear separate, and some waters are calm while others are disturbed, but the light is not divided. Imagine what this means for modern loneliness. Our personalities do experience separation. No one else can live our exact story, and human companionship remains precious. But at the deepest level, Vedanta says that we are not isolated fragments struggling against a foreign universe. The life within us belongs to the same reality that appears everywhere. This insight does not erase individuality. It changes the way we hold it. A wave has a distinct shape, but it is never separate from the ocean. When the wave believes it must defend itself against every other wave, life becomes fear. When it recognizes the ocean as its substance, its uniqueness remains, but isolation begins to dissolve. How can we bring this philosophy into an ordinary day? Begin with a simple pause. Several times today, stop for 10 seconds and notice what is happening inside you. There may be tension, planning, desire, irritation, or excitement. Instead of immediately following the thought, quietly ask, what is aware of this? Do not search for a verbal answer. Any answer that appears is another thought that can be observed. Rest briefly as the noticing itself. This is not an attempt to force the mind into silence. It is a recognition that even a noisy mind appears within awareness. You do not need perfect meditation conditions to discover this. A busy kitchen, a train, an office, or a sleepless night can become the place of inquiry. A second practice comes from the Vedantic method called neti, meaning not this, not this. When a limiting identity becomes strong, examine it gently. I have a worried thought, but I'm not only this thought. I'm experiencing disappointment, but I am not only this disappointment. I have a social role, but I existed before this role and may exist after it changes. I have a body, a history, and a personality, but the awareness knowing them cannot be reduced to any single description. Neti is not rejection. It is the refusal to imprison the self inside a temporary condition. A third practice is to examine desire before automatically obeying it. The next time you feel that you must buy, achieve, check, or prove something, pause and ask, what feeling do I expect this to give me? Perhaps the answer is security, recognition, relief, belonging, control. Then ask a second question. Has this strategy ever given me that feeling permanently? You may still choose the action. The aim is not to become passive or joyless. The aim is to stop confusing the object with the inner state you hope it will produce. This small separation creates freedom. A fourth practice is to look at another person beyond the role you have assigned them. For a moment, set aside whether they are useful, difficult, impressive, or disappointing. Remember that they also experience hope, fear, loss, and the desire to be whole. In Vivekananda's language, the same infinite reality is shining through a different window.